This call is being recorded.
Hello, I'm Peter Bell, and I'm here with Mr. Denis Laviolette, CEO of Goldspot Discoveries. Hello, Denis.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Pretty exciting times for Goldspot. I gather a public listing is just around the corner.
Just around the corner, exactly. So we're hoping that sometime next week. So it should be active. So we're done the QT now. Money's raised, and it's up to the lawyers and the exchange gods to release to release the halt and let us trade.
Wonderful. February 2019 here, and the qualifying transaction. I wonder any information you can provide on that.
Yeah, sure. So we closed $7.5 million, which was an oversubscription of about $1.5 million from what we set out to do. So we had a $6 million goal, and we did far better than that with $7.5 million. It was exciting. We had a really cool group come to the table, Triple Flag Mining. Triple Flag being owned by Elliott in New York, so fairly large, and they've been very active in the last year, acquiring royalties and streams, spending upwards to $800 million, something like that. So very, very active, a private group, but privately owned by Elliott. So they came in for a big check, about $3 million, and so that was a real cornerstone investor for us. But lots of familiar faces and support in our stock. And so, yeah, we've got great shareholders. Really exciting time.
Amazing. Yep. Triple Flag Finance out of Bermuda. I've heard the name a couple times. Becoming a more important player in the junior mining business, I think.
Yeah, they're creeping up there, and they're really they're doing a lot of great deals. They're picking up. They're aggressive. I mean, I think it's a good sign for the industry too, because it's showing, basically a large hedge fund in New York taking a keen interest to load up in the current market. So if that's not a sign that we're at a bottom and we're on our way up, I don't know what is, right? It's another good feather in the cap.
Well, and the long-term vision here, looking at company presentation, I see a slide that says, we are a technology company, not a mining company. So, are you going to be a 43-101 issuer, or is this something else?
No, we are a technology company, and so primarily, we'll be like a technology investment type company. The idea here is sort of creating a hybrid. So what Goldspot is it's somewhere between a service company, a royalties company, an investor. We're really just a new mousetrap, and that's really just to give the modern investor a new way to play mining. And I think that the mining space is particularly unsexy for most of the millennial audience. There's a huge amount of shareholder or amount of wealth that was created through the cryptocurrency boom and bust, if you will, the medical marijuana space. So huge windfalls there. And I'm a millennial. I got lots of buddies that were calling me and saying, hey, would you know any good weed stocks? Like, these are school teachers, right? So
yeah.
It's an insane amount of wealth that was generated all of a sudden, and you never hear that from mining. I mean, at least there was a bit of that in the last bull market. For sure, there was quite a bit of it. But I think that now, a lot of the people, a lot of the generation that has the wealth that's looking to invest, it's going to be an unconventional audience for mining to get interest from. And gone are the days of the broker. I don't know a single friend of mine that has. I'm the only one that has a broker, right? Nobody else has brokers. I mean, they're not going to be calling them and saying, "Hey, you made a good win on your weed deal with your Qtrade account and your online research, your YouTube research, or your e-wallet or whatever have you for crypto. You should be buying this mining deal. It's in the Golden Triangle, and they got 10 grams per ton over 50 meters. Who cares? The new investor doesn't know that, and the existing mining crowd, it's so fractured, it's so broken. I'd be curious to see if a lot of that traffic comes back in. It'll be new people, and so they need something else that they can grasp on. And AI, machine learning, that's a new twist. It's a new edge in the space.
And the deal structure too, the monetization strategy here for Goldspot. Some creative ideas at play with that as well.
Well, look, we ripped a page out of a lot of books. we wrote a few pages ourselves. It all kind of came out of, when we started this whole thing, we found this team out of INRS, and they're just tremendous talent, really, really smart group of young people. They had, excellent geoscience skills, but by and large what they were exploring was the application of machine learning on geoscience data. And that resonated to me. That was incredible. And together we competed in the Integra Gold Rush Challenge and took second place. And we said, okay, well, if it works on a local scale, and it worked at Integra, what can we do on a regional scale? And then sort of the idea snowballed from there. It was like, okay, on a regional scale, let's look at regional data. Instead of training an algorithm on one deposit, let's train it on 1,586 deposits in the Quebec Abitibi. And instead of using, one company's data, let's use everybody's data, whatever's in the public domain, and see what we come up with. And we came up with this prospectivity map for the province. We then we laid on all the existing claims that were active there in the province. Who really got to see who is who in the zoo, and we saw some small companies with tiny market caps that had great ground. We saw some huge companies with terrible ground. We saw some some of everything in between, and we thought, wow, if you have a crystal ball, how do you monetize it? Right, and so we got thinking about capital market side. What about all that data? Can we build something to look at all that capital markets data on top of all that fundamental data? And that's really where the concept of resource quantum was really born from that concept. And we've cultivated that since then. We've aggregated all this insane amount of information on every company, every press release, everything, to really come up with this moneyball approach to mining investing. Can we pick pound for pound the best explorers in the space? Who has the best data? Who's most poised for discovery? And then can we come up with a strategy to leverage this team and this technology we have into those companies, as well as some capital? We knew full well that this is a bottom of a market, or we're in a bear market now. So if we can start building a basket of equities and royalties in a time like this, using an investment approach and edge, leveraging our technical talent and our services and our team, we can really come up with something unique for shareholders.
Yeah, well, and that much is clear. I've encountered a few other groups here and there that have some aspect of AI or machine learning or some kind of technology approach that they're using on large ground packages, but nothing quite like what you guys have put together here. And, just seeing Integra Resources there as one of the clients that you've already been able to secure with revenue generating services. Revenue, imagine that in a junior mining company.
Yeah, well, a technology company. So yeah, we know we've got great revenue. We've got that, a lot of that comes in from a lot of the major clients. And so, that was another idea. It was like, okay, well, how do we prove to the market that this technology is worth anything? Like how do we prove to the market to take a shot on this? And then we thought, well, maybe we could pick up a really good project with lots of data, and then raise a bunch of money and try to prove it out on that project. And you end up hitting this wall where you need to convince people that are resilient to change in a market climate where nobody wants to invest in anything that's not their own. To take a chance with you to try out a technology that, in the mining business, we've seen a lot of technologies come into it. A lot of have failed, a lot of failure to launches. And so we thought, okay, well, how do we get the industry to adapt this technology? And so for us, we targeted, major companies and mid-tier companies in a service capacity. We said, well, if we can show the market that the big companies will put us through the paces and try this technology out, and if successful, the junior companies will see the appeal. The market will respect it. And so that's exactly what we set out to do. And so a lot of what we've done up to date is really just brand building. The Amanas of the world, the Hochschilds, the Sprats, the McEwens, the Integras. This is all just to get us out there and to prove to the market that there's a lot of value in this technology. And to have those companies start out as service clients and then turn around and take an actively invest in our company, not just in just this most recent round, but also historically too. After we finished service projects, they said, "Wow, we want to own a piece of this, and we got more work for you to do." And so it's been great. It's been great source of cash flow. We've been able to preserve our treasury almost entirely from inception and grow out of cash flow. We started off with 6 members, and we went down to 4 members, and now we're at 22. So we've grown and all out of basically free cash flow. So it's been really cool. Like, we're actually going to market with a business, which is unique in the mining business, in the mining space.
Well, and it's reflected in the amount that you were able to raise there as well. That's an important part of the primary markets, the going public stage, and to be able to rally that kind of support from some of the most sophisticated investors in the world, it's very noteworthy.
Well, yeah, thank you. It hasn't been easy. I certainly assure you of that.
Good. That's good to hear. And maybe one kind of question about all these service relationships. I wonder to what degree, those are really bound by confidentiality, and how much, we'll ever really hear about success, exploration success. Sometimes in a bigger company, small success may not really make a headline for that company, whereas it, might be very important for you. The world hear about it?
You know how glad I am that you asked that question, or you picked up on that? Not very many people have, and I can certainly this has been something. So going back to that previous exploration of how we wanted to prove this out, we thought, okay, if we got our own ground, or we worked with some junior and we picked out a whole bunch of targets, and that we would know that news would come back into the market. And so when we went after the big companies for validation, and then we ended up getting validation through investment, so it's fine. But that was the problem, is that what moves the needle for a big company to press release doesn't necessarily – they're not juniors. They're not starving for press releases. Say, oh, AI has found that, or whatever, machine learning. Goldspot helped us to find this, drill this one hole over here that, they hit a zone that they said was going to be there. I mean, they need 50 holes in that sucker for it to hit a critical mass to move the needle on these companies, right?
Yeah.
And so they're not motivated to put that – and so that ended up kind of biting us a bit. But, as a testament to have them come in as shareholders, I think that at least, shows the market some validity in what we're doing here. But, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the problems we struggle with, is that by choosing bigger companies to work with, they're not as motivated to put the news out, and rightfully so. I mean, it's got to work for their market too. They're not just going to put out, a little something.
Well, and I guess all of the cash in the treasury now helps you be a little bit more pointed in going after some of the smaller groups who you think may have potential there but don't have the funding to do the work, and you can maybe get some of those success stories to really wave the flag about publicly.
Exactly. So that's the whole point. And with Resource Quantamental, like our AI machine that basically analyzes the stock market, analyzes the fundamental and the financial side together, to pick the ponies for us to bet on. That's the whole thing. If we pick out the absolute best ponies we can work with, and then go to those companies and make a strategic investment in them, and provide them with this tremendous team that we have already paid for by the big companies, those salaries, that G&A is covered. We could just utilize that for the junior companies and put them to work to help make these stories better. They're going to be motivated to spend the money that we leave on the table, or we give to them, in order to test some of our targets. And that's going to really be what's going to, I think, set us off in a big way. So you can imagine with $10 million, we're going to have a lot of stabs at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the first time I'd heard about regional program in Quebec there. It seems that is a hotbed for this kind of research, very information-rich area.
Yeah, well, Quebec's a hotbed for AI in general, but traditionally their climate is so much it's very good. They're very, very, like, I mean, with Socium, with the Quebec government, the way it funds exploration. Quebec's very Quebec centric, and a lot of the capital in Quebec, through the case and everything, is directed at supporting Quebec exploration. And so they've been very good at that. And a lot of that, their modules and their systems and everything, it's very, they have a high amount of transparency, good integrity in their data, the machine learning, the advancements that are made in the tech side. Quebec is really, like, I think Microsoft is building a new AI facility actually in Montreal, but 5,000, I heard 5,000 employees, something like that. So, I mean, that's phenomenal. But really, AI in Canada, like, the number one hub for that is Quebec, is
Yeah.
Montreal.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing a lot of that leave Silicon Valley and moving to Montreal, so which is really cool. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You end up with this great jurisdiction with great data, geologically and in the mining community, but also, a really good place for innovation and technology and artificial intelligence, machine learning.
Well, and the layers of geological information too.
Oh, there's no shortage. I mean, you have incredible geophysics over the entire province. You have, great geological mapping, soil geochemistry, stream sediments, drill holes. Everything is there, and it's all in the public space. Whereas if you venture off into Nevada, you don't have any of that. I mean, it's super top secret. And so it's an interesting time for Goldspot, because what we do is really effective in some jurisdictions, and we can really hit a home run. And then in some other jurisdictions, it's like, well, yeah, those are great mining jurisdictions, but a lot of data is very secretive. But nonetheless, I say that, and probably one of our most successful projects was in Nevada.
Well, it may be a case of one of these groups having, data that, well, it comes this example of them keeping it secret on the discovery side. Afterwards, they had kept it secret prior to that too, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, exactly. Secret on both ends. The whole thing's a top secret game.
Well, and there's a lot of money at stake, right? So it can be understood
Sure.
to some degree, but just sets Quebec apart as, leading place for the mining industry globally.
Well, yeah, there's, and it's not limited to Quebec. There's Quebec, there's, basically most of Canada, all of Canada for that matter, is quite good. And other jurisdictions too. A lot of the African jurisdictions are incredible. We're working on one project we'll be announcing shortly, and essentially, I mean, it's great. It's got a huge wealth of data. The governments, the IMF, World Bank, they pay for tremendous surveys to be flown, and all this super sophisticated data to be collected, just to attract new investment dollars into some of these, inject capital into these companies or into these countries to stimulate the mining business. And that data is readily available and free in most cases.
Yeah, and the beauty of being able to do it right from the beginning in some of those circumstances too, and lessons learned from Nevada versus Quebec there, and best way to set up those government policies, really from carte blanche.
Yeah, well, a lot of the data collection, it's nice to have seamless data sets. And I mean, that's a real luxury. We never get that. I mean, as a company, we end up having to massage the seams and level and stitch and homogenize data, whether it's geophysical data, geochemical data. But in some of those places, when the government's paying or other external bodies are paying and supplementing that, you end up with these, beautiful seamless data sets from end to end that cover not just they cover the entire country or large swaths of country or province, but also a multitude of deposits. And so you have for AI, you have a tremendous training set to work with.
Yeah, and that's so important. One of the things that's always fascinated me about, geological data is the different scales, and the fact, you can have a data set that covers the entire country, and then within that, you can have higher resolution stuff of the same methodology, and both of those data sets can provide different insight.
Well, totally. I mean, that's a lot of, like, some of the pushback we have as a company from people like skeptics is they say, well, how is it going to work? I can see how it works for brownfields exploration, but it's never going to work for greenfields. And it's like, well, it all depends on the granularity of data and the granular product you're looking for. If we're going to be working with regional data, and you said it's the same type data types, you're right. And so if we're working with regional data and we're training on multiple deposits, I mean, we might not be able to show you where to stick the next drill hole per se, but we can certainly show you where you should be exploring or where you should be following up with a more detailed program and what area has the best shot. And so equally, that's just as valuable, right? So it might be able to tell you in an entire geological district, what's the best land to put together? What's the best land package to have? Where's a total waste of time? So you can totally, hone in on those more expensive, more granular surveys to be more focused. And so it covers all different sort of aspects of granularity as you go from a really high view down to really a zoomed in project scale view.
Well, and people who know the mining business to some degree have some familiarity with that, but there's a whole broad cohort of people who don't have any sense of the process of exploration and all the twists and turns that Mother Nature lays down when some of these things are created, right? Figuring it all out is a massive undertaking, and then let alone production, right? It's the mining industry is just awe-inspiring.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a very, very complicated. It's a very complicated space. It's full of complexity from top to bottom. Production's challenge. Almost nobody makes money. It's like almost no discoveries become a mine. As you go down the list to see something from like the exploration side and the initial discovery side, all the way down to actually what goes into production and what actually then makes money. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and with all those challenges, it becomes so much more clear how important it is to at least have some of the foundations of the company set up the right way. And for a technology company, you mentioned the team having shrunk down from 6 to 4 and now up to 20 plus. The list of names and the credentials and all that in the deck is very impressive.
Oh, we're so lucky. I mean, we've got a really, really unique blend of talent. That's what we focused on. We recognized very early that machine learning and AI is not enough. Like the actual data science side of the equation is not enough. We couldn't just have a whole bunch of computer nerds trying to figure this out and put in data. Like the data is full of mistakes. You have to understand the data to plug in. And so we ended up getting this, starting to assemble this rockstar team of not just like, say, geophysicists, but geophysicists that not only understand geophysics, but also, maybe have a PhD in machine learning and data science, right, or math. And so you need that special blend of domain expertise with that data science edge, and that's really like CJ calls it collecting Pokemon, and that's really what they do. Like they're all special in their own little way, and they all have this special blend of skills. And that's really what we've focused on. And so whether it's like a PhD structural geologist that also happens to publish papers in the data science world or code on his spare time or her spare time, we have like incredible people. We have like quantum physicists that are helping us on the financial side because there's a lot of stuff that different disciplines can bring to the mix. And so we're really bringing all of these people together. And every deposit, every data set, every project is different. And it's not one code. It's not like, we're walking around, people are like, like everybody has a solution, right? Denny, you're doing this all wrong. There should be a licensing model. It needs to be a SaaS model. You should be, creating a software and licensing that software. Well, first of all, they have no idea like what the market share in mining is in terms of software. And like, the biggest software company in the mining space, it's like, I don't know what, it's probably a $10 million, $15 million company.
Well, right? or it's SAP, or it's the accounting software.
Right. Like it's not, I mean, we're not building an AI QuickBooks that the whole world can use. It's like, this is mining. It's small. If you add all the top gold companies together in the world, you're still not, market cap of Apple.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those. So, and then furthermore, saying, well, it's got to be a licensing model, it's got to be like a software model or whatever have you. Well, it's not a one-size-fits-all problem. Like every single property, every blend of data set, it's all unique, right? They're whether it's different geophysical data types, different frequency, whatever. If you just try to build a software with this auto click a button machine learning, where you feed in a whole bunch of Python, off the shelf ML algos, it's not going to work.
Yep.
And so I'm sure somebody will do it. I'm sure somebody will try to promote that, and that'll be a direction someone's going to try to take. But it's a super flawed. Like we literally have to custom build everything we do for every client and every project.
Yeah. I was trying to imagine what that process might look like a little bit, and I just gave up pretty quickly.
Well, you get more practiced at that, which is really cool. So we get better at it. There's a lot of stuff that we can carry from one project to the next. In terms of our workflow or the way that we work together, and so we're getting more efficient, and we're going to be able to do a lot more, and we're doing more things every time. And you almost wish you could go back to the first project you did with all that you know now and try it again, right? But I mean, it's a business.
Well, and that again comes back to some of the deals that you've done with the partners in a service model there. Very, very valuable experience.
Yeah, well, that's the great part is they've watched our evolution too.
Yeah.
They've watched us evolve from the first project we did to, the last project that we did, and in some cases, not all of them, obviously. So some companies have given us 5 projects to work on, and some of them were only on number 2. So, but or number 1. But I mean, it's great. I mean, it's great to have that feedback. It's great to see how you learn how to deal with people. You learn how to deal with geological teams and some of the pushback and some of the skeptics and all of that too. So it's interesting.
I can't imagine the resistance you encounter along the way.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. But all in all, I think people are waking up to it. It was the same resistance that block modeling companies felt when they were, with Datamine or whoever, was first, creating software or whatever have you, and block modeling was the approach of the day to optimize the resource calculation business. I mean, I remember starting and it was all done with a planometer and polygons and on long sections, and it was just, this manual process. And when there would be one computer in the office, and that was the block modeling computer, and it was like everybody's afraid to touch it. And then every now and then there'd be this specialist that would come around, and that was the block modeling guy or lady, and they would come there and just, sit there at that PC and run it for like 3 days in a row. Nobody breathe on it, and then all of a sudden it comes out with the resource calc. And at first everyone was just saying, well, those block models are all wrong. You got to do it by polygon. And anyway, it's all a learning curve. Technology's there to help us, and it will.
Amazing to hear that you've seen that evolution in your own career.
That's a testament to the business, my friend.
Yep.
The fact that I'm not that old.
Exactly.
The fact that I had to do things on paper when I started out. Like we had a light table. Everything was on light tables. And I'm watching the company spending huge money. Like I was with big companies, small companies, and we're spending big money on geophysical surveys and IP surveys, and we were withholding information from the geophysicists to test them. We're like, well, don't give them everything. Don't show them the targets that we have ourselves or some. Let's see if they find them on their own.
Oh
and it was like, holding back to test, this witchery that was geophysics, and then the geophysics companies were trying to, convey this super sophisticated information, this 3D multivariant information to us on, we had dial-up connections.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's only so much you can transfer. We get a CD in the mail. That was good. And nobody looked at that. The dust would go. And you'd get these like 4 or 5 color maps to look at. First vertical derivative map, second vertical derivative map, horizontal derivative, and you're like, okay, well, I'm with you, I get it, and they'd explain to you what it means, and you go, yeah, and then you'd overlay it on your light table with the rest of your stuff. You print it out on a plotter, take an hour, and then you'd overlay it on the light table, see if you see a pattern, and like this is not that long ago, right? This was
And
happening
if you
in
squint
2010.
hard enough, right, Denis? If you squint just right, you might see it.
Oh yeah, right. The eagle face, the eye of the eagle, and the mouth, right there. That's where and everybody's kind of picking out shapes. You see that little horsey-looking shape in the geophysics? Well, that's right there. Like, we should drill that, and we would drill,
Yeah.
and then we would miss, and then we would throw the geophysics in the garbage and say it's a geofantasy. And the CEO would talk to the market and say, we tried IP, and IP doesn't work here. Or we tried mag, and mag doesn't work. And that would be it. So as an industry, we spent an ungodly amount of money on super sophisticated data that totally stumped us. And it stumped me too, right? I'm not like pretending like I was this like super expert or anything. Like, I wasn't. But, I just recognize that we're spending this money. There's all this information, and, it's not being utilized.
Well, and it's a personal bug of mine. I always find myself debating people, they say, oh, drill, drill, drill. And I'm like, hold on. Do we have any data? And they're like,
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
respecting the different layers is just, it doesn't seem to be a real big part of a lot of people's approach in the exploration business. And it's wonderful to hear that that's your premise here.
Well, it's a data-driven approach. I mean, we don't believe in betting on the jockey. Not necessarily, right? And the fact that that's still a thing, that people are bona fide mine finders, well, this person, he's a great geologist or she's a great geologist, he or she has found mines, right, has found deposits. And so as soon as a discovery is made, they get appointed to the board or the advisory committee, and all of a sudden that person comes in and saves the day. We've got a great mine finder now on the team. It's like the data does the finding. They're not going to change the process of blanketing your whole property with geochemical sampling and or geophysical surveys, and you know what I mean. Like, that whole concept of mine finders. I mean, the fact that we bet on that is completely preposterous.
Yep.
It's like, I get that. There's some truth in it in the sense of like running a company, and being frugal, and watching your dollars, and running it right, and having access to capital. That's all very true. But when it comes to like actually technically someone being superior than another because they were lucky, I don't believe in that. I believe that there's great projects out there with people that no one's ever heard of, that have incredible projects that don't get any capital, and we want to find those companies and do a deal with them and bring them capital, and also bring them a team that they can't afford to make it happen.
And to help them look at the data that they may, in a different way. They may not, they may have blinkers on, and they may not have stepped back and looked at all the data that you guys have put together. You may be able to, another set of eyes may help them in some of those tough situations.
Totally. And it's amazing when you get involved, because you start engaging them. You start engaging these people, like these geos or whoever else is involved, and you start engaging them, and they go, oh, wow. Oh, this is useful. Let's try this. And it's like, great idea. Let's try that. That might work. And then we get a product, and now they understand it. So it's not, this thing that's supposed to threaten every geologist's job, and we're going to put geologists out of work, and AI is going to solve all our problems. And then, no, it's just another tool. It's it's going from paper cross sections to 3D models, and a step further to AI handling and finding patterns in this unfathomable stack of layers of data that no human possible could ever look at all at the same time and find patterns in.
Well, and as you say too, data that is not particularly friendly to work with. I have some experience data analysis myself, and the time and effort and expertise required to massage and trim and get the stuff all lined up with itself, that is very challenging.
It's where we spend 90% of our time,
Yes.
homogenizing, cleaning, fixing data, tidying it up so that we can, get it to a stage where we can, use technology to help us And even technology can help us clean it too. But I mean, you got to be careful doing that. But certainly, there's ways to to tidy things up and simplify things. But yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. Like even structural data, I know that's another pet peeve of mine. We look at you have all these world class structural experts, and they're great. They really are great. They come to a project and they that's a structurally controlled deposit or something, and they'll come in there and do this big forensic review and generate a 100-page report. And this top shelf structural geologist has put in hours and days and months of time to generate this 100-page report, super complicated, all types of measurements in there, and sits down with the geological team, flips through the report, explains it to everyone, and for that blink, for that glimmer in time and space, everyone in the room is like, their mind is widened and they're open and they're going, their eyes are open and they're going, and everyone's nodding and going, yeah, I am with you. And then that person leaves, and you're stuck with this big report, and then you see it hit the shelf, nicely bound, and then within months, you can see the dust collecting on top of it, and it's like no one has used that information. That information just died on the shelf, and those measurements are not going to be worked into the model. Yeah. And then every geologist has a job to do. They have tasks to do day in and day out. They don't have time for that, to go through there and pull out all that and try to draw it all up. Like, it takes forever. So, I mean, we're not trying to give something we're not trying to create something that people don't know. It's just like pointing them on to the fact that, hey, you have this information. You, as much as I am ashamed that we're not using that information, right? So let's work together. Let's use it.
And so for the companies that do work with you, you said it before, but there's not, some software that they just use. Is it fair to say it's a little more involved than that?
Well, for us, we use every type of software. So our geophysicists will use conventional software, geophysical software. We do a lot of processing externally because those software packages are not equipped with some of the tools and we have to write our own scripts and our own things, and we have to crunch the numbers outside of that. And sometimes we use cloud computing and things like that to make that crunching process a lot quicker, and then we can just simply output the product back into that conventional software so we can visualize it. That's a lot of what goes on. But yeah, it's not as simple as one silver bullet software.
Yeah, good. Getting stuff out of one place and back into another, and that's it. The heavy duty AI stuff that you would have had to build outside of all the existing things. I can't quite imagine all the different software you must have, and keeping all that organized, checking all that for bugs. I guess that's where the 22 people on staff comes from.
Yeah, there's 22 people, 9 PhDs, all of which way smarter than me, and they are champions of that. And you know what? There's still going to be mistakes. There's still going to be false anomalies. There's still going to be whatever. It's just about if we can get from having 100 targets and boil it down to 10 and only 2 work, that's still better than what the industry's doing.
Yep. It's clear. No, it's certainly, it's compelling. And there's a huge opportunity here. It's going to take some bold vision to go after it, as is apparent from this company, Goldspot Discoveries, Inc. I wonder.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome. No, it's a pleasure to be talking to you. I wonder to what degree, some of the technological, scientific breakthroughs that are obviously happening somewhere among the team. I wonder if any of that will really see the light of day as well.
Eventually it will. I think that some of the stuff we can do now, I mean, we can take 4 or 5 different geophysical surveys, or even just one geophysical survey that's picking up, petrophysical properties of the rock that we always neglect to analyze when we, hand it off to a geophysics firm to, oversimplify in a couple 2-dimensional maps. When we take that raw data and we crunch it, we can do some miraculous stuff now. Like even some of the simple things like generating a really detailed geological map at the click of a button.
Oh,
I mean, with nothing else other than geophysics. And then you have this incredible geological map, a three-dimensional model as a product, but you have this incredible geological map that, instead of having to walk line by line, mapping outcrops and all that, now you can just, take all that geophysics, crunch out this super high detailed geological map. You don't know what to call certain things because they're grouped according to their petrophysical properties, and then we will revisit those things with, it saves so much time. You just, instead of having to walk line by line, you just go and say, okay, well, what type of rock is this color?
yep.
Anomaly, and then and add a label to it, and then go and just do some check work and some validation work to get to where you need to be, and that alone will save the industry huge amounts. So those are little internal projects that we've built that eventually will see the light of day, but right now we have them for our own usage and for the usage of our clients.
Targeted ground truthing, it sounds to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like instead of just having to just blindly walk line by line by line and map outcrops, or sometimes you don't even have it. This is great in areas where you don't even have any outcrops or very few.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and satellite imagery too. I'm assuming there's some pretty high resolution and a variety of types of imaging there.
Oh yeah, well, we want to talk about South America, the Andes, or anywhere that's got low vegetative cover, where multispectral or hyperspectral data can be used to some high degree of accuracy. It's like having geochemistry over every square inch of land, and you can cover hundreds of deposits and use machine learning to figure out the fingerprints, and then see where else you see those fingerprints reemerge. It's incredible what kind of products you can generate just by doing that. So multispectral imagery, hyperspectral and polychromatic imagery, satellite. I mean, it's all super useful stuff. So if you bring all of these worlds together, and that's really what we're about, it's just bringing all this tremendous stuff together, brainstorming how to make it work and how to make use of it all, and let the computer do what computers do best, which is crunching numbers and finding patterns.
Yeah. Well, and the world's your oyster to some degree. Pick the tools for the right area and go to it. I wonder how you guys kind of narrow down such a broad search space.
Well, it's interesting. So from Resource Quantamental's perspective of analyzing sort of every company and all this information on the public domain and picking out the best companies to work with, a lot of times we've got our own biases too, where we say, okay, well, certain districts and certain jurisdictions we put a preference on because we know we can bring in those type of tools where, if you're in some jungle dense area where, multispectral imagery is out and, the companies hopefully have geophysics. If they don't, well, that's out. Well, there's not much we can do right now. So they'll rank lower. But even with just all the things that meet our criteria, there's just so much out there. We could do it. We could do work for 1,000 companies.
Yeah, this is it. But 22 people may sound like a lot, but I am sure those people are more than busy, right? And that's the question of corporate leadership here too. Yourself as a president and CEO, setting those priorities.
Yeah, well, it's really that's really been the challenge is scheduling now. We've got a tremendous amount of interest. Lots of major companies are coming to us and saying, "Hey, we want to do something," and so we're looking at it and trying to juggle the bandwidth and say, "Okay, well, we can take a couple major companies because they can bury us in data and work, and we could supplement that with a few junior companies where we're a little bit more nimble, a little bit easier to work with, and no less accurate. We can still add a lot of value there, but pound for pound, what's better for us, right? What's the better blend? And so we're trying to juggle a lot of that. We've grown our team to address some of that, and we're figuring it out. We're feeling it out. I'd love to be the person to say, we've got it all perfectly planned out. It's not like that. It's a business, and some of it is you throw yourself into the deep end and try to swim.
Well, and it sounds like a barbell strategy a little bit too. The stuff with the majors there to keep bringing some revenue, and then some of these targeted investments in some of these juniors. If that doesn't just provide a wild upside, for Goldspot, I don't know what does.
Yeah, well, if we can just keep our G&A offset totally by major contracts, and utilize that capital and put it to work in the juniors for royalties, and start building an equity basket. I mean, that's really what it's about. And so it'll be just this tightrope walk as we grow. How much can we do? And right now we're noticing too, like, the strength of our team is the fact that our geophysicists and our structural geologists and our geochemists and our resource people, like, everybody's working together. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to cap out our business and say, there's this limiting reagent where the bottleneck is collaboration, and there's this magic number where we just cannot grow past that. I think we can. I don't think we'll ever have to, but I'm very cognizant that a lot of our advantage is just taking this multidisciplinary approach and having all of these disciplines under one roof. It's
Yeah.
very important.
Well, it very well may be that the bottleneck is the people, or even collaboration, however you measure that. And the future of this company may have some kind of a modular shape to it, right? Where some of these people who are involved in some of these early campaigns, get involved leading other groups and within the company, regional focus, client specific groups, the quite a broad range of possibilities here in terms of organizational structure for Goldspot.
Yeah, well, it's ever evolving, right? You want to departmentalize and compartmentalize, but you don't want to lose that advantage of having having that multidisciplinary sort of cross communication between groups. And so, but you're absolutely dead right. I mean, and that's like, anybody that says they can predict this about their business and say, this is exactly how it's going to play out. This is what we're going to do, and how as we grow, we're going to. It's all a process. You're cognizant of it, and you cross the bridge when you get to it. You figure it out, and that's what we're about. We've done it since the start.
Wonderful. Congratulations. I wonder if there are any deals with juniors that have been disclosed at all yet.
No, there isn't. There's a few in the pipe that will shortly, hopefully, be disclosed. But at the moment, nothing yet. But stay tuned.
Roger. Thank you very much. I'm sure the market will be puzzled over what to make of this. Who was associated with the IPO? You mentioned Triple Flag. But is it an RTO, IPO? What's happening there?
Yeah, it's an RTO. It's an RTO with a CPC called Duckworth. Really, just a capital pool company. They had some cash. We chose this path thinking that it was a quicker way and an easier way to get to be public. But inadvertently, it ended up being the same as probably a traditional IPO. So I'm not sure. I think we've demystified the allure of choosing the RTO path over the IPO path. I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah.
So in the future, anybody looking to take their idea public, I'd be weary of that. Not that they weren't great to work with. I think everybody involved has been absolutely great. I just think that there's just as much BS and molasses to swim through with the RTO process as the IPO process.
Absolutely, yeah, and the crowdfunding and everything going on out there too now, changing landscape, it would seem, to some degree.
Yeah. I hope to see that come into the mining space. I know a few different groups tried. Right, Red Cloud tried to launch some sort of crowdfunding platform.
Well, and it's one thing for getting distribution numbers, but it doesn't really help with the big money raise, right? And that's where cornerstone investors like Triple Flag for you guys pivotal.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully we have to wake up to a lot of the regulators. I think need to wake up to a lot of the red tape around funds and sort of it's getting very very difficult for funds to invest in a deal like us and all of that. We had to go through some fairly unconventional channels for capital. The retail audience with their ability to invest in deals like ours, they're just not really dialed into that yet. So this is kind of this growth pain period. I think we're going to see, and as we talked about earlier, we're going to see this huge shift. I didn't know anything about crypto. I didn't know anything about blockchain. I'll be the first person to admit that, and I'm sure people will say, well, whatever. But bottom line is I got my education on YouTube.
Yep.
I went to YouTube and I watched some videos, and I was like, okay, now I get it. That's where people are going to get educated. That's where people are going to consume information. Like I said, I have a broker. Very few people I know have brokers. A lot of people do their trading on their own. The traditional way of private placements and all of that, it's a little bit flawed. I don't know. We've got to reinvent something there because how are you going to get accredited investors? There's a lot of people out there that are accredited investors. They don't know it, and a lot of people don't understand these mechanisms, right, of how to play, all that. So yeah, it's just going to be a really, really interesting time for the mining community overall. I think we've got a whole new audience to captivate. Hopefully, stories like AI, Goldspot, they allow for a new generation of investor to get sharp in the tooth on mining deals and exploration, and they get an appetite for that. I think what Steve DeJong's building with Verify. Have you seen that?
Oh, big fan. Yeah, absolutely. Very important.
Yeah, so hands on, it's great. It's just everybody's got to drink the Kool-Aid, right? And then eventually, the new mining investor is not going to be looking at a cross section that they don't understand in a press release, a whole bunch of tables of from and to drill results that they can't spatially visualize. There's all this nonsense that, it's not designed for the modern day investor at all. And the new generation that wants to watch YouTube videos and understand. I was joking on. I did a Palisade Radio interview today with Kareem, and we were talking a little bit about this. And I said to him, I was like, the number of people that will listen to this interview, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000. I bet you'll get 2,000 views, right? Eric Sprott, Rob McEwen, Frank Holmes on Palisade Radio. Yep. Maybe they will get 5,000 views, which is actually pretty good, right? That's not bad for a mining show, right? An online thing on YouTube. And if you look at some guy that's tweeting or YouTubing about cryptocurrencies and e-wallets or medical marijuana deals or even anything like that, you'll see hundreds of thousands, millions of views, right? And we scratch our heads and wonder why nobody gold's at a bottom and why isn't it going higher, and mining companies are particularly undervalued and gold's on the ups and ups, but it hasn't reflected in the one, we run really horrible business in the end in terms of our ability to make money.
Yep.
But two, we're not captivating anybody with this.
Yep. And same as it ever was. The crowd will come. It does what it does, right? It chases whatever's hot, and mining will have a time again.
Well, I hope it's Goldspot. I hope Goldspot's going to come in and play mining Moneyball like the movie and completely dominate and shoot the lights out in the space, and then everybody gets excited about that, and then ensue people start to go and just invest on their own in individual deals. That'll be good.
Well, and that's
I think it'll take something. It'll take something to attract new investors.
I agree, and I've been watching, for leaders and groups that could be leaders in a run, and I think to think about what the business you've set up here, imagining 3 successes in 18 months or so, or hopefully much less. Imagine 3 successes in 6 months, the first 6 months of being public. That would just surprise everyone, I think.
Well, totally, but then we'll always have the skeptics, Because they'll say, well, okay, they found AI resulted in this discovery, but then how much is really there? It's not a resource yet, so what's that royalty worth?
Yep.
The royalty portfolio is worth nothing, and you know what I mean? Like there'll always be there's so much mud we're gonna have to wade through to get to the other end. I definitely think that a few discoveries will be transformative for our value. I just think that it'll take some serious time before everyone really turns around and respects it. And I noticed that when I was road showing. I noticed that when I didn't do that much road showing. To be fair, this whole RTO process took a really long time, and the financing, all that. But it wasn't because of lack of interest. It was just because of some of the groups we had, the due diligence, and all the stuff that we were working through. That's why such a long delay from when we announced this process to when we closed. But by and large, on that path, I was meeting with people and they're saying, okay, this is great, but then what are you worth? Like, okay, you're a technology company. What's your recurring revenue? What's your this? What's your that? And they're trying to hang us up against other models that they know, which is natural. That's what I was an analyst too. That's what you do. And when you can't hang up the company against something else, then it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything until it's worth everything. So I mean, it's like everybody scratched their heads about Facebook, right? Like Facebook was worth nothing until it was worth everything, and that's the truth. Amazon's the same. So was Netflix.
Well, and that's it. And change is accelerating, and all these things that we know for our time today in the world. Amazing.
Yeah, it's like you wake up and you blink, it might be too late, right? Like if the way I look at this is that I know for sure, and a lot of our shareholders are in the same boat, we know for sure AI is coming into this space. We know for sure AI and machine learning is going to turn the space on its head. Right now, Goldspot's 3 years at it. We've got 22 people, 9 PhDs. We're dedicated to ushering in part of this change.
Yep.
And so if you believe that AI will come into the space, then, I don't think there's nobody else to bet on. We're the first movers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that's the, what keeps me, I can sleep easy at night knowing that, we're working on something. We're working really hard. There's going to be some people that are going to poo-poo us. It's going to happen. But, hopefully the proof is in the pudding and the numbers speak for themselves and we can show the market what we do. And now we've got all the money to do that. So that's good.
Denis Laviolette, CEO, Goldspot Discoveries, Inc. Thanks very much for talking with me today.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It's been a treat.
Look forward to next time. Goodbye.